Well, police are gearing up for pro-Palestine rallies in Melbourne and Sydney today on the eve of October 7. In Melbourne, it's expected to be the biggest rally of the year. Let's go live now to Holly Stearns, who is there for us today. Holly, Victoria Police are taking a zero-tolerance approach today.
Police have said essentially they won't tolerate any lawbreakers today. While they say they do respect the right for people to protest, they will be taking a firm approach against anyone showing Hamas or Hezbollah flags today. We're here at the protest. It has just begun over the last couple of minutes or so. As you can hear behind me, they've begun chanting as well, but it's relatively peaceful at the moment. There are thousands of people here, and it's expected to be one of the largest protests here in Melbourne today. And they're also going to be protests, of course, in Sydney today as well. There'll be a beefed-up police presence in both Melbourne and Sydney. Now, what we can tell you is one of the presidents of the Australian-Palestinian advocacy group, Nasser Mashni, he spoke to media a short time ago. He was quite hostile to media. He doesn't agree with how the media has been covering the conflict so far. He took aim at most of the media that he was speaking to. Here's some of what he had to say.
I condemn Israel. I condemn Israel. I condemn our government that refuses to condemn any Israeli action, no matter how barbarous.
So the protesters today will march from here at the State Library down to Flinders Street Station. As I said, it's relatively calm at the moment, but of course emotions are high as the tension in the Middle East continues to escalate by the moment, by the day. Now, of course, we know that this tension is now in Australia, and most people and politicians on both sides of the aisle are really calling for calm and peace.
Enough's enough. We've got the point. This has gone on for 12 months. The hate and that's permeating the Middle East, we don't want it here. That's not the Australian way. That hate needs to stay where it is. We're a multicultural country that is the most successful in the world, and it's time for these people to lay down these protests, get on with life, and obviously we want to see peace. We do, but you can't achieve it from here. And I think it's time now for the Prime Minister to call this in and to actually show some leadership and say enough's enough.
We've got an obligation to keep the public safe in a difficult time, and when tensions are high, there's a high prospect of clashes or violence on Sydney streets. We have to take what would ordinarily be actions that you wouldn't contemplate. But under the circumstances, I think most people would agree that we're not going to do much about Middle Eastern violence from Sydney, and we have to do everything we possibly can to prevent that kind of violence in Sydney.
As I said, it's relatively calm here at the moment. We've got a pretty big police presence surrounding the group here. It's growing by the moment, though. Lots of people turning out here and chanting for pro-Palestine. Of course, these protests have been condemned by politicians on both sides of the aisle, deciding to do these protests on the eve of October 7, a day when Hamas terrorists killed 1,200 innocent people. Now, we also know that politicians have taken aim as well at Jacinta Allen, the Premier of Victoria. She's been criticised for allowing this protest to go ahead. Of course, there are sensitivities on both sides of this conflict, and we know as well activists are also planning protests tomorrow here in Melbourne and in Sydney as well.
Holly, thanks for the update.